We're on? Happy Telecast Tuesday to everyone out there in Atlas Land. It's Dan.
Brendan.
And we have fantastic technical production today from B. And we've got Miette helping run the controller here. How's everybody doing out there? Hope you're having a fantastic Telecast Tuesday no matter where you are in the world. We're here in beautiful Glendale, California at Atlas Lens Co. headquarters. And do we have a special treat for you today? We are looking at a couple different vintage lenses and a couple brand new Atlas Ultra Telephoto Orion series lenses. And these aren't just any Atlas Orion telephoto lenses. These are Atlas Orion Silver Edition 135 T2.2 and the Orion Silver Edition 200mm. So let's check it out. And man, do we have a table of vintage goodness for everyone out there to look at. Right now we're looking at Brendan through a vintage Bausch & Lomb Baltar CinemaScope 75mm. And while Brendan looks elegant and definitely like a rebel without a cause today here on a Tuesday, he does have a little bit of mumps. And that's not because Brendan got infected with the mumps.
Excuse me.
Oh, thank you. It's because this is a vintage Bausch & Lomb CinemaScope and it's not corrected for close-up focus. So the way that the lens works is that there's two different groups that are in movement and they're synchronized by this beautiful rack and pinion focus system on the side here. But when you move the anamorphic elements closer together to do close focus, you lose anamorphic squeeze ratio, making this come down to about a 1.8 squeeze instead of a 2 times traditional CinemaScope squeeze. So close-ups don't quite look as great as they could. And the minimum focus on this lens is just around 5 feet. So Brendan is right around 5 feet from the image plane right now. How you doing today, Brendan?
Doing good. Yeah, it's been a morning. Just enjoying my day. How about you, Dan?
Having a great day. Sunny. Went for a nice jog, dropped the kids off at school.
Nice.
It's an awesome Tuesday so far.
Great, love it.
It's only getting better from here now that I'm here with B, Miette, and yourself and the rest of the Atlas crew here at Atlas headquarters, and getting excited for Wednesday Lens Day, which is something we do every Wednesday here at headquarters. I know you're a fan of Wednesday Lens Day.
Come to Wednesday Lens Day.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We do it every Wednesday from 10:30 a.m. to 1:30 in the afternoon. We have free coffee. It's sort of a social hour, social gathering. And we also try different lenses, different cameras. Sometimes we have workshops. Not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, we're going to be joined by Cassius from Cinema Junkies. And we're going to get a little demonstration of how to use a kinematic robot arm to move a camera system. You'll be able to actually get shots of yourself being filmed through an Atlas lens with a little bit of motion control robotics. So we're going to hit the switches and make it drop low.
So are we going
to see what happens?
Take out the demo floor, switch that all out for the arm?
Well, I think the cool thing about the Cinema Junkies robot system is that it's portable, so they're going to haul a robot over.
Okay.
We're going to set it up on the dance floor down below.
Nice.
Set up a nice lighting setup, and then we'll use Frame.io to upload clips of people enjoying themselves being filmed with an Atlas lens with a little bit of robotic movement programmed by Cassius, so we can have a movement that's repeatable, programmable, accurate, and hopefully dynamic and interesting. So
I think it will be.
Let's give it a shot. Let's try it out. So how's everybody out there in the stream doing? Chat, what's poppin'? If you have questions about some of the vintage lenses you see on the table or the new 135 and 200 Orion Series Silver Edition, drop those questions. Miette and Brendan will help relay those questions to us, and we'll do our best to answer your questions and give you the world's best anamorphic cinema lens experience. That's what we're all about here at Atlas, and we're here for you. So even if you don't get your questions answered directly today in today's stream, you can actually schedule a virtual demo with us where we give you a virtual production guided experience. You can direct us remotely from anywhere in the world to set up a shot, light it, film it, and give you direct real-time dailies as well as direct feed from the camera of your choice That's pretty incredible.
Oh, amazing. Love it.
Never seen anyone else do that, except on real film sets. But this is the first time I've seen a brand do it in this way. So, pat yourselves on the back, Atlas team. We've done it again. So yeah, here we are. We're looking at the CinemaScope Baltar. This lens dates to around 1955, 1956. And as you can see, it's a pretty heavy beast. It weighs over 20 pounds. I'm not sure what that is in kilograms. I forgot. I think that's like at least 10 kilo. That's heavy. But it is very beautiful and elegant in terms of this follow focus that's built in. So I could rack through, you could see as we go to the stream, I'm gonna focus on the lights in the background. And then you can see Brendan's face geometry, even though he's out of focus, looks way more like Brendan, the Brendan we're used to, just out of focus. And then as I focus in closer to Brendan, you could see the background bokeh begins to stretch beautifully. He comes into focus, but his face looks a little bit wider than it normally does. And that's due to that anamorphic compression ratio changing as you focus. And of course, that is not a problem with our modern take on CinemaScope anamorphic lenses with the Orion series and the Mercury series lenses. So shout out Atlas team for making the best of the past meet the best of the future. Do you want to flare us?
Yeah.
And chat, do you have any questions about what you see with this CinemaScope Baltar lens? This is something that to me is very important because this is really, in many ways, one of the jump off points of where what we know and love and do every day here at Atlas began. So it's very special, near and dear to my heart, and something to celebrate. And this exact lens was used on the movie Rebel Without a Cause, so that's why I brought it up earlier. If you happen to be at Cinegear LA at the Warner Brothers lot, this lens went back to where it was from, which is Warner Brothers. It was leased to Warner Brothers from 20th Century Fox, used on movies like Rebel Without a Cause, and then over the years became forgotten, neglected, and then ended up at an auction, and then later ended up in the Atlas Lens Co. Kane's Family CinemaScope Museum. So here we love to preserve anamorphic history, not only reflect the values and tradition of the past, but also bring forward the best of humanity, best of cinematography for the future. So if there's any questions coming in from the chat, let us know. But otherwise, I'll probably switch over to another focal length on the Sony Venice that we've got here. And we're being filmed with a spherical zoom lens by B right now with the Alexa Mini LF. So shout out Arri, shout out Sony, shout out to all my favorite camera brands and camera manufacturers. We love all of you. We are not going to single out anyone. We're going to be equal opportunists and put our lenses on any camera, whether it's film or digital. That's what we're all about. So I'm going to switch from the CinemaScope Baltar. Unless you had any questions. Do you have any questions?
Well, maybe it might be something I'm not too familiar with. How come cinema lenses, older ones, are using f-stops, and why are they using t-stops now?
That's a great question, Brendan. So t-stops, if you're not familiar with the idea of a t-stop, T is for true or transmission value. So it's the actual amount of light being transmitted through the lens. Mm-hmm. And the reason that T-stop was developed by a consortium of people, including some folks from Cooke, was to make sure that when you're running a ton of film through a camera, even if your f-stop is a very fast f-stop, like an f1.4, if you don't have coated surfaces and there's many glass surfaces and thick elements in the lens, your actual light getting to the film plane is much less than the theoretical f-stop value. So f-stop is a theoretical value that relates to how much light can reach the film plane given the distance from the nodal point of the lens to the film plane. So it's a theoretical number of what could possibly be true, but by the time all that light is reflected and refracted back, some of that light is lost because you're not optimizing each surface with coatings. If you're thinking back to like the 1920s, 1930s, pre-coating time, so a lot of light is lost in reflection. And so an f1.4 lens might actually be as slow as a T true value of 2.4, 2.5. So if you're metering for a 1.4, but you're only getting a 2.4 worth of light to your film plane, you're going to have very underexposed dailies. And then all the people that spent all the money financing that film stock, when they go to process it in the 1920s and 30s, and everything looks grainy because you're dealing with very slow film stocks at that time, something like 25 ASA film speed, and you're like, yo, that's not exposed. Then somebody's going to slap the cigar out of your mouth from the back of your head and start coughing in the theater, and everybody's going to be really mad at the dailies. But that's how things were back in the day. It wasn't quite as pleasant as it is today here in this beautiful air-conditioned room without cigar smoke. Shout out to the American Society of Cigars and Filmmaking. I'm not a cigar fan, but I do love film, so at least we share that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So coatings actually are a very interesting technical phenomenon that allows more light transmission to go through the glass. So it's an anti-reflective coating, meaning that it prevents light from bouncing back in the system and forces the light rays to get through the glass all the way to the film plane.
Okay, that makes sense.
Good morning. Hey, we got the lens, thank you. Come on the stream. This is Ricky. He's a
Ricky,
really
come on
awesome
in.
part of our team. He brought us a 200, so Ricky is a really incredible part of our lens development team, and he's been with us for 6 years now. So really incredible to have Ricky here. He's one of those people who just makes working at Atlas a better place. He makes the lenses better. He makes our lives better. He puts a smile on our face. And when there's problems with things, he helps us solve them. And so, we were challenged by these new lens designs, because things in the computer often look perfect. And then you go to build the lens and you're like, well, it's not quite what we designed. There's all these challenges related to bringing a design from the virtual world into the real world. And that's where team members like Ricky, who are part of our development team, optimize the lenses and then make them even better. And so thanks to the work of people like Ricky, Javier, Daniel in production, Joe in production, Alex, Matt Sala, all the incredible people in our lens production and development and improvement cycle team really help make these lenses as great as they can be. And so we're really excited to show these lenses today. He just has this freshly optimized 200 that he put together with our team. And we're going to look at it on camera in a moment. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for being a part of our team and making
Appreciate it.
Atlas and the world of cinematography all that it can be. Shout out, buddy. So chat, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here for you. But yeah, we might as well look back in the past before we look to the future again. So right now we have this 75mm Bosch Shalom CinemaScope Baltar. I'm thinking maybe we hop over to France for a moment and look at about 135mm focal length achieved through this very rare and unique Franscope zoom specimen. So this started life as an ingenue zoom in France, and then with a different group of optical engineers in Hungary and France working together, they developed one of the world's first anamorphic zooms, if not the world's first anamorphic zoom. And this was used by cinematographers like Raoul Coutard to make many of the French New Wave films, films like Breathless, other anamorphic CinemaScope films of the French New Wave. Really, probably one of my favorite lenses in the history of lenses. And it's such a unique and beautiful lens. And so I was thinking we could look at the 135 focal length on the zoom range on this, and then pop up a 135 Orion Silver Edition and do sort of a comparison back to back. What do you think?
I love that. And then in the meantime, maybe you can help me ask or answer a question from
while I'm
Ray.
doing the lens swap, we'll hear that question from chat.
So Ray Lavers, coatings, can they be poisonous? I mean, thinking about lenses, one that kind of comes to mind is maybe a spherical, but like the Takumars. Can you explain, are there anything similar to that in the anamorphic lenses?
Well, that's a really great question, and it's a couple-parter, so I'm going to do my best to try to answer each part of it. So lens coatings are typically deposited through a process called vapor deposition. And vapor deposition is a way of evaporating metal compounds or different alloys, such as magnesium fluoride or silicon dioxide. And it's basically like a giant microwave oven that's taking these tiny particles of substrate, evaporating them into mist or vapor, and then that vapor mist is lightly deposited onto the surface of the glass. So it's sublimated onto the glass surface and becomes sort of imbued on a microscopic or nanoscopic level into the glass surface. So it's almost like if you took a little bit of Windex, sprayed it in the air, and then wafted the lens through it, but way more toxic than Windex. So don't inhale magnesium fluoride vapor, but thankfully most of us are not sticking our head into a vacuum coating chamber during the process of coating. And so I would say generally best practice would be not to lick a lens surface in general. I've seen people do it. Don't recommend it. I wouldn't say it's poisonous, but in that vapor state, in that matter state of vapor, it would definitely not do good things for your lungs or your internal organs. But as it sits on the surface of a glass, or kind of bonded ionically to the glass, it shouldn't really be a problem. And I'm thinking you might be thinking about a glass material like thorium. Now, thorium is not a coating. People often mistake thorium for a coating. Thorium is actually an ingredient in some glass substrate, which helps it to basically optimize the index of refraction and dispersion for that glass. And so glass, in case, chat, if you didn't know this, glass elements that make up a lens are made up of many different types of material. So not all glass is the same, but there's a few basic categories of glass. So the two chief categories you could think of in glass types are crown glass and flint glass. And the division line between those has to do with the index of refraction. So above a certain index of refraction, it's one type, and below a certain index of refraction, it's another type. In the chat, if you know the difference between a crown and flint glass, say what that index of refraction is, we'll give you a prize. So I'm going to just optimize this lens real quick on the camera, and you can see, dang, you are looking pretty cool, dude. So I'm going to find, because it's such a finite little part of the lens here, there. So I'm about at a 135. I'm going to make sure we get you focused up optimally here. So let's be real, like this looks pretty darn good, but it's also a little bit, as we say, sometimes smoky or astigmatic. And talking about transmission values and f numbers, the theoretical f number of this zoom lens without the anamorphic stuff attached is a 3.5. But the measured t-stop value, once you have all of the anamorphic stuff on and you consider all of the different surfaces of glass that make up the zoom, it goes as slow as a 4.4. And then once you get down to 135 on the zoom range or 140, you can see there's a lot more aberration. So it's hard to get the telephoto into this lens optimized. Like the center, your eyes are fairly crisp, but you can see there's a little bit of aberration, and if I pan through, you can see out towards the edges, definitely some light transmission fall off, a little bit of cat's eye in the bokeh, and we're at a 1.4, so I'm going to do a little bit of a exposure index increase here. So I'm going to go up to 2000 on our ASA, and I'm going to stop down a little bit to a 5.6. So you can see, like, once we're at a 5.6, Brendan sharpens up considerably there, and really a really incredible zoom. Considering this is from around 1962, only 19 of these lenses were ever made. Probably one of my favorite lenses in all of time. And yeah, this is what it looks like at about a 135 focal length. I'm going to zoom out. You know, once you get into like 75 millimeter or down to like 50 millimeter, it really looks crisp at a 5.6 and, you know, very low aberration, nice contrast when you're stopped down. Do you mind flaring us? And chat, if you have questions, throw them out there. And if you look at this lens, you might notice something that looks a little bit familiar to an Atlas lens. If you can guess what Atlas lens bears some similarities and resemblance to this beautiful early 60s French anamorphic zoom, let us know in the chat. We might have a sticker pack for you. But again, this is definitely one of my favorite lenses of all time. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know your favorite lenses in the chat, and we'd love to hear from you. But you can see that, you know, a really cool thing about this is that it also has incredibly close focus. So I'm going to pull focus all the way to minimum here for a second. And, you know, you could see that my thumb and my Apple Watch here, we're only about 18 inches from the front element of the lens. So we're well within a 2.5 foot range of the image plane right now. And I love this lens. I just think it's stunning.
How does this lens for close focus on MUPS compare to what we were using earlier?
It has a very, very subtle amount of MUPS at minimum focus. So,
Okay.
you know, most anamorphic lenses of that era won't focus down to 2.5 feet or 3 feet.
Mm-hmm.
They won't even go below 5 feet. So you're lucky if you can get below 6 feet on most of them. And at this minimum focus distance, you know, I'd say this might be like a 1.88 squeeze, like 1.8 to 1.88.
Okay.
So it's not too apparent. You know, you're kind of, it's easy to ignore. My hand looks fairly normal. And then, you know, when we're at normal shooting range with Brendan, about 5 feet from the image plane there, he just looks great. You can see there's a little bit of veiling coming from the key light. Like if I pan over, you know, we're getting a little bit of veiling glare that wraps in the bottom there. So if I flag that, you can see that coming on and off. And shout out to our greens folks who put the plants in the background. So we have some organic bokeh today. Simulated organic bokeh.
Question from the Instagram. Ratio
Yes.
between the angle of incidence and emergence?
Ratio between angle of incidence and emergence. I'm not even going to pretend I understand that. If you want to try to clarify it, I'll do my best to answer it, but I may not have an answer for that. I'm not sure what you mean. But, you know, we can definitely offline about it. You can email info@atlaslensco. We'll do our best to answer it. But we are looking at about a 50 millimeter focal length on a Franscope zoom, which is built off an Ingenue 35 to 140. We're right around 50 millimeter on the focal length. And I'm going to zoom back in to Brendan. I'm going to stop down a little bit. I'm going to zoom back into him to go to the telephoto end of the lens. Just check our focus. You can see there's a little bit of astigmatism there unless I stop down. So he's looking crisp now, pretty much. And I'm going to swing over to the 135 Orion, and we could do a little comparison. So chat, if you have other questions, hit us up and I'll swap this lens. And Brendan, if you have questions, or Miette, B, if you have questions you want to add, go ahead and toss those out there while I do this lens change, and I'll be happy to do my best answer.
Looks like Dovius from YouTube says they look very much like the Mercury lens.
Shout out.
Blair.
Shoot us an email to info@atlaslensco.com. We have a sticker pack and a mini slate pack waiting for you. That's exactly right. The Franscope lenses were definitely one of the inspirations for the Mercuries.
And then Ryan wants to know again, what camera format are we looking at on the Sony? What ratio and everything?
So we are shooting in open gate mode, but we have frame guides on for 239 to 1. So we're looking at anamorphic cinemascope aspect ratio. So we're a little bit old, a little bit new. Traditional meeting the modern. Atlas, we're bridging the best of the past of cinematography with the best possible future of cinematography. And what you're looking at now is a Orion Series Silver Edition at a T4. We got Brendan right here at 5 feet from the image plane, looking absolutely crisp on the new 135 Silver Edition. Now this lens opens all the way up to a T2.2. In a moment, after we flare it a little bit, I can actually take the ASA rating of the camera down and open all the way up on the lens, but happy to take any questions you may have about the Silver Edition Orion Series 135 and 200. And we can also demonstrate one of the incredible things about these lenses compared to lenses of the past. With these telephoto lenses, you wouldn't have prime telephoto anamorphics from 1962. Even up until like the 80s, a prime telephoto was not very common in anamorphic. And so to have that perspective, but also have incredibly close focus that these have, which is 3.5 feet from the image plane with that telephoto magnification, is really something exceptional. So Brendan, if you could flare us up, we'll look for some questions. Hit me off axis first and slowly sweep it on frame. And we'll see if we could see that Silver Edition. Go ahead and sweep it in. Yeah, look at that beautiful Silver Edition flare. Oh my goodness. What a treat. I didn't know it was going to be that kind of Tuesday, folks. Here we go. Killing it. All right, I'm going to ISO down a little bit here to increase the contrast. So we're still at a 4 on the lens. And then I'm going to actually rate this down a little bit lower with ND. So ooh, spooky time. I didn't know it was going to be Halloween so soon. So I'm going from a 4 all the way wide open here to a 2.2, and we're at an N3. And you can see you still have a super crisp center of field. Brendan's eyes are just popping there. You get the eye light. You got a beautifying effect, and you get a little bit of a Petzval and coma in the bokeh there when you're wide open. And go ahead and hit me with a flare from off axis and slowly sweep it in. And chat, if you have questions, look at that. Ooh, those are my favorite Silver Edition flares, those off axis flares. Wow. Really stunning and beautiful. Chat, do you have any questions? Miet, B, what do you think? Any questions about what we see here today?
How do these perform Super 35 versus Open Gate like we are right now?
So what's interesting is that when you are in Super 35 mode, it's not going to be that different from what you're seeing in terms of height as what you're seeing, because we're shooting a 239 delivery aspect ratio. So you're coming in a little bit off of that open gate sensor. You're chopping a little off the sides. So mostly the thing people need to understand about the difference between full frame and Super 35 is that these are just different fields of view. And so in anamorphic lenses, and really any lens, the field performance is going to vary depending on where you are in the field. So if you're in the center field, which would be where Super 35 is, more things are going to be sharp, more things are going to be regulated, aberrations are going to be better corrected. The further out you get in the field, the less regulated those things are going to be, so you're going to get more aberrations. So if you're looking for funkiness, aberrations, fall off, coma, different aberrations, spherical aberration that sorts of fall off in coma at the edges, full frame might be your best bet. But if you're delivering 239 out of an open gate sensor, this is really going to be pretty solid for you. And then if you don't mind just reaching your hand out to, back up just a hair. So a little more, there. So Brendan's palm is 3.5 feet from the image plane right now. And you can see as I pan through, just the way the bokeh is shaped has a little bit of Petzval to it. and this is on the 135, which is a very crisp, beautiful lens. And then if I stop down, you can see the shape of the bokeh changing a little bit. So if you want, you know, consistent ovals throughout the frame, even out to the edges, probably going to want to be at like a 2.8 to a 2.84 split. But you're going to get really nice sharp performance in terms of the in focus area across the frame, edge to edge, basically, with an Orion. So I'm going to go ahead and pop on the next vintage lens, which would be a Lomo Photon 37 to 140 anamorphic, which is sort of a evil twin or a good twin, depending on how you look at it, of the Fran scope. Twins separated at birth, you could say, because the zooms are very closely related, but the anamorphic style and anamorphic development that added onto those zooms diversified the further away you got. So the Lomo Photon non-anamorphic version 37 to 140 is sort of a Soviet re-optimization, or in a way duplicate of the Angenieux 35 to 140. So it's not a one-to-one duplicate, it's sort of a reference clone. It's not a direct clone.
Would you say maybe
ahead.
it's kind of similar to kind of like Zeiss back in the day versus like the Jenna, I believe it was, line?
That's an interesting thought and question. So for those who don't know world history as much, Zeiss Jena was part of the East German part of Germany.
Mm-hmm.
So after World War II, Berlin was split and Germany was split, where part of it was under occupation from the former Soviet Union and part of it was Allied territory. And so they just sort of built this wall, the Berlin Wall, and some of the factories for optics were on the East German side, and those became part of the Soviet Union, and knowledge transfer occurred. So there were already great optical engineers in the former Soviet Union, Ukraine, Russia, a lot of very brilliant people in St. Petersburg and Kiev developing optic systems and technology, high technology. But then with the absorption of East Germany into the former Soviet Union, there was knowledge transfer there. And then West Germany had Oberkochen, which is another Zeiss factory. And so some of those engineers and their families were separated from each other in a way. And that knowledge kind of became part of the state knowledge. So they were distributing development information and kind of building off the research of these scientists. And so in a way there were some sort of twin lenses or evil twins, or depending on how you look at it, you know, knowledge transfer.
Yeah.
Bless you, by the way. And
Is that very similar in a sense to these?
it's similar, yeah. So in the Soviet Union, they took these Angenieux 35 to 140s and said, hey, we like this, but we need to make a state-built version that we make under a quota system here in the Soviet Union, and we want to use all of our own glass materials that we melt here. So that's how they developed the Photon 37 to 140 zoom. Then they said, well, we want to make an anamorphic version of this because we want to make CinemaScope movies too. And so they developed this, which we'll put on in just a moment here. So we're going to pop off this beautiful 135 Orion Silver Edition and pop on this 37 to 140 Photon A. A for anamorphic, A for awesome.
That's what I thought it was.
That too.
Awesome.
So we're at minimum focus there, and yeah, you can see that at minimum focus, Brendan has a little bit of that mumps factor going on, and I'll zoom in, make sure I'm grabbing the right ring here. I'm not. I know I can do this. Here we go.
Got to stand.
So that's right around 100 mil, and you can see that It's not quite holding up as well on the telephoto end. So here we go, we're right around 135, matching what we had going on before. And can you lean back just a little bit? There we go. So you can see the transmission value is not quite as fast. This is at a 4.3 according to the lens mark, but you could see at a 4.3 it's significantly darker. So I'm going to take off the ND.
Was that F or T?
This is theoretically a T value, but I haven't put it on the T-stop machine to see if that's very accurate. So I open up to a 2000 ASA just so we get a little more light through, because that T value is really not what it should be. You can see there's a significant veiling even compared to that Fran scope zoom. And let me see if the alignment is a little, yeah, that's better. Not quite 100% aligned. So lean back just a hair for me. So I'm going to stop down a little bit, and that'll help sharpen up Brendan here. We're at a 5.6 now, and I'll just flag that flare. This is what 5.6 at 135 millimeter focal length looks like with Brendan.
Gonna hit you
And
with the flare.
right around 5 feet. Now, no doubt these flares are incredible. You can see it has that blue magnesium fluoride type flare. You could see the shape of the iris and a little bit of pupil occlusion in the bokeh there. So at the edges, the bokeh becomes more skinny and kind of twisty a little bit. And if I rack through focus, that might change shape. And famously, I know the audience knows, I know B knows, famously, if you can name what movie this lens is known to have been used on, it's a really great Soviet film from the 1970s. Drop it in the chat, let us know. If you know, you also get a sticker pack. So B, you already get a sticker pack for just doing a great job. So no need to blow out the chat. We, you know, let someone else answer. But yeah, this is looking, you know, definitely it has a look, let's just say. Love it or hate it, it's definitely distinct. I kind of like it. I think it's not for everything. You kind of have to know what you're getting into with this. And you know, when you're not on the ultra telephoto end, so if we come out to, you know, 75 mil at a 5.6, it's actually really clean, other than that veiling flare there that I'm flagging with my hand. But chat, what do you think? I mean, do you like this lens? Would you use a Lomo Photone? It's a little hard to use compared to an Orion series, and you know, that's really one of the key advantages. I'd say the bokeh looks a little bit messier on this and a little bit busy, depending on where you are in the field, but definitely has a look, it definitely has a purpose. You can see how much resolution and clarity there is in Brendan's hair and skin. His eye light, nice and crisp. You know, I think it's definitely a look. What do you think, Brendan?
No, it looks good. I noticed like on the telephoto side, you're getting more of those mumps, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're zooming out to the 70, was it 70 or 75?
Yeah, 75. It becomes less apparent.
Yeah, but I think naturally I kind of like that look between like that telephoto side.
And you want to hit us with an off-axis flare just one more time
Yeah.
before we swing lenses? I mean, the flares are very cool, so, you know, it's neat. What can we say? I love lenses. It's hard not to love it.
It's like a different painting brush.
Yeah. This has what I'd call a Hadouken flare. You know, any fans of Street Fighter out there will know what I'm talking about. As you come through, you could see that fireball from Ryu right there. Boom.
Ryu
There
or
it is.
Ken? Are you a Ken or a Ryu guy?
I think I'm a Ryu boy, even though my name's Dan. That's for the Street Fighter Alpha junkies out there, if you know what I'm talking about. Say something in the chat. Okay, so let's see, what else could we look at? I'm gonna go out to 140 on the lens right before we swing over to a 200 Orion to show the incredible power of high magnification anamorphic in close focus. And lean back just a hair for me.
Yeah.
There we go. So Brendan's in focus there again. We're at a 5.6. I'm going to open up.
And was the movie Solaris, by the way?
That is correct. So it sounds like we have a sticker pack winner. Unless, Brendan, you're trying to go for that sticker pack today.
Nah, it was Ragdoll.
All right.
Is in the Instagram.
Shout out Ragdoll. Nice. Okay, chat. Well, we are going to swing from this Lomo Photon A 37 to 140, and we're going to travel back to America from the former Soviet Union. Go with an Orion Series Silver Edition 200 T3.2, and we'll see just how bright, clear, and crisp that lens is. Compared to some of the lenses of the past, but also, you know, bringing some of that vintage anamorphic flavor that we all know and love.
And then on the Instagram, Ryan asks, do you think this is a better one? I've avoided this lens for years now because it's never sharp.
Which lens?
The one we just took off.
I mean, this is one of the better copies of the 37 to 140 anamorphic I've seen. It's a good one of that lens. It's a good sample, but you know, if you are in a high pressure environment, you are in a hurry, you just need to make sure that the tools get out of your way and give you the best picture. I can't help but recommend an Orion series or Mercury series from Atlas. Now, I know I'm biased, but
a little.
it's going to make your life easier, I promise. That's really what our mission is here, to help you make better images easier. So here we are, we're at 5 feet. We're wide open at a 3.2 on the Orion 200. You can see how beautiful that bokeh is in the center. You can see just how bright, crisp, and true Brendan looks. And wow, what a lens. Chat, what do you think? I think it's banging. This is a silver edition, so go ahead and hit me with a little off-axis flare and then sweep it through. I love those off-axis flares. Love how that veil comes in nice and gentle, and you get those beautiful little bit of secondary ghosting. And yeah, definitely. For a while, I thought the 18mm Orion was my favorite, and now I'm confused because I really love the telephoto lenses too. So
That's why you got to build out a set.
I think if I just had two, at the moment I'd probably take an 18 and a 135 to a desert island and just be like, yeah, this is my style now. Like very wide to very close, nothing in between. That's the beauty of anamorphic, is that you get a wider angle perspective with a tight vertical perspective. So high magnification, but with a wide angle field of view. You want to show me your palm at minimum focus. Back that out just a hair. There, we're in just a hair. 3.5 feet, boom.
That's pretty crazy, even for telephoto.
Yeah, on a 200, you know, that's really something to look at. I think Brendan's telling me it's time to stop the stream and have lunch. That's what you mean by that, right? By
What are we
putting your
getting for
palm up?
lunch?
What should we have for lunch? Chat, what should we eat for lunch today? Let us know. We're in Glendale, right on the border of Burbank. Should we have IKEA meatballs or veggie balls, or should we go to Tender Greens? I think that's what I'm doing today. I like the contrast in this lens. You know, you get a nice ratio between shadow and highlight, and plenty of resolution, but not overwhelming. You know, it's riding that line between the real world and storytelling. I think that's what makes a high quality anamorphic lens a
What
very special tool.
Is the longest like telephoto anamorphic?
It's a good question. I don't know, actually. I know that there are rear anamorphics that are like around 400, 500, 600 mil. A front anamorphic that's 200 is pretty uncommon. So I know there have been quite a few 180 millimeter front anamorphics, but I don't know of a lot of 200 mil or longer front anamorphics. So this is certainly in sort of a category that is fairly unique. There's some really great Panavision anamorphic zooms that go all the way out to 200. Shout out to our folks from Panavision. Really love Panavision. Huge part of the history of cinematography, making great lenses, making people's world of cinematography better. So I have a lot of appreciation and gratitude to those folks.
We shot a lot of my favorite movies.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, I think this has been pretty special. I think I'm going to pop back over to one more lens. We'll go back to America in the mid-century with this rare and unusual scanoscope lens, which there is almost no documentation about anywhere. And this is a sort of bespoke low volume production lens that we think dates back to the early to mid 1960s, maybe the early 70s. And the prime lens in the back of this is a Super Baltar 50 millimeter. So this is a Super Baltar 50 coupled to a custom unknown mystery anamorphic group. And Scanoptic, as far as I can tell, was a special effects VFX house for opticals in New York. And that's about all I know. So if you know anything about Scanoptic or the history of Scanoptic or their lenses, let us know, because I'm always looking to find out as much as I can about the history of anamorphic lenses. We have 2 samples of Scanoscope lenses here in the Kanes Family Atlas Anamorphic CinemaScope Museum. Come on by any Wednesday Lens Day, say hello, check out the museum. It's a living museum, so you can experience these beautiful pieces of history here in our building with our great team of experienced specialists and all the folks here. Get a little factory tour, have a little coffee, meet some new friends, meet some old friends, have fun. Every Wednesday we do it. But Chad, if you have any other questions, I'm going to swing this lens, so go ahead and relay those questions through our team while I do a lens change, and we're here for you.
Okay.
Thank you, Brendan.
You're welcome.
And then I think after this, we'll round it out with a spherical lens to just end the stream for today. But here we are looking at this unique Scanoscope 50 millimeter Super Baltar custom one-off. And it's at its minimum focus distance, which is 5 feet. We'll pan around. You can see it has that veiling glare. I'll pan off the key light. It has a little bit of mumps, so it's a synchro focus type design. Go ahead and hit me with a little flare. We'll show people what that looks like. Kind of a beautiful flare, a little bit reminiscent of a Todd AO, a little bit of pinkness, which is always one of my favorite flare colors. Really a interesting, pleasant, beautiful, and unique lens, and very rare and unusual. And I like how it kind of veils out from the center of the light source, so that kind of makes me, that's giving Columbia pictures, if you know what I mean. And anything else anybody wants to ask or know before I swing to one of my favorite spherical Soviet lenses, the Zodiac?
And Mackey's asking, did I miss any Panavision C anamorphics?
C, senor? No. No Panavision C series on today's stream. In the future, we may have some special guest Panavision Auto Panatars from some friends on loan. So if you'd like to see that, let us know in the comments what you want to see. We'll do our best to bring it in. And we have a stranger, Hajun, Cowboy Dan they call him sometimes. The lone stranger.
Howdy.
Well, thanks for the question, Cam. I love it. And let us know in the chat what you'd want to see, and we'll do our best to get some special vintage optics from our good friends at PV in here for us to take a look at. But yeah, this is the Scanoscope 50 Super Baltar anamorphic. And I think we'll wrap out the stream today with the 30 millimeter Zodiac. This is a fisheye lens that's made for a Pentacon 6 or a 6x6 film camera, but it's been PL mounted. And it's a fisheye, so the bokeh is not, well, not the bokeh, but the distortion is not super well corrected, so it has a lot of barrel distortion, which I personally love. And this is a underrated, under-recognized lens with a huge image circle. It's not fast, but the bokeh is beautiful. And the way it handles color correction to me is exceptional. And it has really good close focus. So I'm gonna switch off from the Super Baltar Scanoscope anamorphic. I'm gonna turn off anamorphic mode. And while I'm doing that, if any other questions are out there from the chat, let us know. We'll do our best to answer them.
What camera did this fisheye come from?
This comes from the Pentacon 6 system, which is a 6x6 medium format reflex mirror stills camera system. And these are made in Kiev. Shout out Ukraine, shout out to my Ukrainian friends. There we go. So we're still in a 2:3:9 aspect ratio just to kind of maintain that concept. And you could see how nice the skin tones and color correction and the aberrations look. Just a really cool lens. I mean, 30 millimeter on a 6x6 format is very ultra wide angle, but even though it's fisheye in that format, it's not like a true fisheye in the sense that the image circle is limited to being a circle in 6x6. So it's just a very, very wide lens. It's not super rectilinear, but it's pleasant. It's got very pleasant barrel distortion. You can see out in the edges as I pan through, there's a roundness and niceness to the distortion that just makes it feel very personable and, to me, welcoming. I mean, to use all the overused words, organic, cinematic, to me it feels like home. So, you know, if I'm shooting spherical and I want something to feel friendly but like interesting, I would definitely choose this lens. Like, this is to me, a banger. It's an underrepresented banger. And I think this would look really good in something like an Alexa 65 or the new Blackmagic or Sissini 17K. So I'm really looking forward to trying that new Blackmagic designer Sissini 17K. Can't wait to get my hands on that sucker. It would look great on a Fujifilm GFX 100S Mark II. That's something we can do in a future stream. If you want to see it, shout it out, let us know. And you can see I'm like right here next to the camera waving my hand around. But yeah, it's got such a wide angle field of view. I'm basically oblique to the side of the lens. You can see my palm. The flares are very attractive. And it just has a nice sense of perspective. And just because I'm silly, I'm gonna go to minimum focus, throw the bokeh nice and round and big. And then Brendan, if you wanna come over here and just put your face, you can come around.
I gotta come all the way.
Yeah, it's minimum is minimum. So we could be silly. Pretend you're doing a lens change. Get right in there. What's on the sensor? Yeah.
I think I can see myself on the sensor.
It's a fun lens, right? So
This was made for
POV, you're a camera, and Brendan's the AC. Now Brendan's a cop. No narcs, Brendan.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Just kidding. By the way, huge shout out to Giovanni Ribisi and JT Molnar for the film Strange Darling, shot with Atlas Orions on Kodak film. Go see Strange Darling. The movie is crazy. I saw it last night, blew my freaking mind. I don't really love thrillers with a lot of violence. It scares me too much. I'm old. I just want to like live in comfort and peace. But I might actually have to watch it a second time. It was that good.
Shot on film, right?
Shot on Kodak film. Shout out Giovanni Ribisi, JT Molnar, killer film. Can't wait for all of you out there to see it. Shot on Orions. Be on the lookout. It's a wild one. And come on down and see us tomorrow, Wednesday, 10:30 a.m. to 1:30, Glendale, California, right near IKEA. And every Tuesday we do this telecast. Thank you so much, B. Thank you so much, Miette, for your amazing technical production. Thank you, Brendan, for being a great on-screen guest with me today and
Thank you,
testing
Dan.
out these lenses, asking a couple questions. Chat, if you have any other questions, drop them below. Otherwise, shoot us an email at info@atlaslensco.com. I'm Dan Caines. It's been another Telecast Tuesday. We'll see you soon. Peace out. Arrivederci.